The research ship New Horizon moved slowly through the dark space between the asteroids. Captain Day Park stood on the bridge looking at the computer screens with worry on his face. Something was out there in the darkness, and it was big. "Captain, we are finding something huge in the asteroid field," said Officer Yoon from her seat at the control panel. "The energy readings are not like anything we have seen before." Hana Kim was the newest person on the science team. She had just finished school 3 weeks ago. Most of her teachers told her not to take this job so far from Earth, but she wanted to explore space and learn about alien life. Now she was looking at readings that made her heart beat fast. "Sir, the life signs are very strong," Hana said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Whatever is out there, it is alive, and it is very, very big." Dr. Yuki Tanaka was the head scientist on the ship. She had studied more alien animals than almost anyone else, but even she looked surprised at what the computers were showing them. "The brain activity readings show a very advanced mind," Dr. Yuki said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "But the size readings say it is at least 800 meters long." Captain Day felt worried. In his 20 years of flying ships in deep space, he had learned that finding unknown things usually meant danger was coming. "Could it be a ship or some kind of alien machine?" he asked. "No, sir," Hana answered, moving her fingers quickly over the buttons on her control panel. "The readings show it is made of living tissue. This is definitely a real living creature." The bridge became very quiet except for the soft humming sounds the ship made. Everyone there knew what this meant. No known species in the galaxy grew to be this big while still having such a complex brain. "Captain," said a new voice from behind them. Commander Jun Lee was the ship's military officer, and he walked over with heavy steps. His face had scars from fighting dangerous aliens before. "I have been listening to radio messages from the nearby space colonies. There have been problems in this area." "What kind of problems?" Captain Day asked, even though he thought he already knew the answer would be bad. 3 research stations have stopped sending messages in the past month. No emergency calls, no wreckage found. They just disappeared. June put his hand on his weapon without thinking about it. "The local people have a name for whatever has been taking them. They call it the Vorthak." When June said that name, everyone on the bridge felt scared. Even Hana, who was new to space work, had heard stories about the Vorthak during her training at school. People talked about it in whispers as the most dangerous hunter in the galaxy. Some said it was so old and powerful that entire civilizations made up stories to warn people to stay away from it. "The Vorthak is supposed to be just a story," Dr. Yuki said, but her voice showed she was not sure about that anymore. "No one has ever proven it really exists. Until now," Hana said very quietly while looking at the computer readings that clearly showed something massive and alive hiding in the asteroid field ahead of them. Captain Day made his decision with the heavy feeling that comes with being responsible for other people's lives. "Stop all engines. Emergency safety rules are now in effect. Dr. Tanaka, I want you to study how that creature behaves. Commander Lee, get your security teams ready and charge all weapons." "What about me, sir?" Hana asked. Her voice was small, but she sounded determined. The captain looked at the young woman who had joined their crew just 3 weeks ago. She was very smart, that was clear, but she had never faced real danger before. "You help Dr. Tanaka, and Hana, stay alert. If the stories are true, we are about to meet something that has been the galaxy's top predator for longer than humans have existed as a civilization." As the New Horizon turned off its engines to run silently, the creature in the asteroid field began to move. On their screens, they watched with both wonder and growing fear as something the size of a small moon moved through the rocks with impossible grace and smoothness. The huge creature seemed to flow between the asteroids like water. It did not crash into anything or push the rocks aside roughly. Instead, it moved around them so smoothly that it looked like it was dancing through space. "Look at how it moves," Hana said with amazement in her voice. "Something that big should not be able to move so carefully." Dr. Yuki was studying the readings on her screen. The gravitational sensors show it is not using any kind of engine or thruster. It seems to be moving by controlling gravity itself. Commander Lee checked his weapon systems again. "I don't care how gracefully it moves. Something that size could destroy our ship just by bumping into us." The first sign that the Vorthak knew they were there came when all the small life forms in the area suddenly disappeared. The asteroid miners and space creatures that had been showing up on their sensors just vanished. Their life signs went out one by one as the massive creature moved toward them. "Captain, it is coming toward us," Hana reported. Her voice was tight with controlled fear. Time until it reaches us is 4 minutes. Captain Day felt his training take over. All crew to battle positions. Engineering, give me maximum power to the engines. Navigation, plot a course out of this star system at top speed. The ship's lights changed to red warning colors as crew members ran to their emergency positions. Through the big windows of the bridge they could see asteroids tumbling away, as something impossibly large moved through space toward them. "Sir, I am reading massive space distortions," Officer Yoon said with her hands flying over her controls. "Whatever this thing is, it is bending space and time around itself." Commander Lee had moved to the weapons station. His experienced fingers were already powering up the ship's defensive systems. Shields at maximum power. Point defense guns online. All missile launchers loaded and ready to fire. Dr. Yuki stood next to Hana, and both women were focused on gathering as much information as possible before the creature reached them. "The brain activity readings are incredible," Dr. Yuki said quietly. "This creature's mind is more complex than anything we have ever recorded. Doctor, with respect, I don't care how smart it is if it is about to eat us," Commander Lee said in a rough voice while watching the tactical display as the massive shape got closer. Suddenly, the ship shook hard as something brushed against their outer hull. Emergency lights flickered and several crew members fell from their seats. "What was that?" Captain Day demanded. Hana looked at her readings and her face turned pale. "Captain, it did not hit us. That was just the wake it creates when it moves. The creature passed under us at a distance of 2 kilometers, and the space distortion was enough to shake our entire ship." Through the main viewing window, they saw the Vorthak for the first time. It was unlike anything in their databases of known alien life. The creature seemed to blend living tissue with cosmic elements. Its body was dark as space itself and covered in what looked like living star patterns that pulsed with their own light. Massive arms, each the size of a city block, moved with fluid grace through the empty space. "My God," whispered Dr. Yuki. "It is beautiful. It is terrifying," Commander Lee corrected, keeping his weapons aimed at the creature. "Captain, I recommend we leave immediately." But Captain Day was studying the displays with the calculating mind of an experienced commander. "Wait, Commander. Look at how it is approaching us. If this thing wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead. It seems curious." The Vorthak had stopped moving directly toward them. Instead, it began to circle the new horizon at a distance of several kilometers. Its massive form moved through space like some kind of cosmic sea creature. The star patterns on its skin shifted and changed, creating what almost looked like a form of communication. Hana found herself fascinated by how the creature moved. Against all safety rules and common sense, she felt drawn to understand it rather than fear it. "Dr. Tanaka, look at these brain patterns. The creature is not showing hunting behavior. It is showing investigative behavior." "What are you suggesting?" Captain Day asked, turning to look at the young scientist. "I think it is studying us the same way we are studying it," Hana said. Her voice grew stronger as she became more confident in her idea. "Sir, what if the Vorthak is not just a mindless predator? What if it is intelligent? What if those research stations disappeared because the crews got scared and attacked first?" Commander Lee looked skeptical. "That is a dangerous theory to bet our lives on, Rookie." Before anyone could answer, the ship's communication systems suddenly came alive with sound. But instead of words or normal signals, they heard something impossible. It was a sound like singing, deep and powerful, that seemed to come from space itself. "It is trying to communicate," Hana said with excitement while her hands worked frantically at her control panel. "The sound patterns are incredibly complex. This is not just noise. This is language." The Vorthak song continued, filling the bridge with harmonies that seemed to reach into their very souls. Some of the bridge officers stepped back in fear, but Hana stepped forward. She was drawn by a sense of wonder that was stronger than her. "Terror. Captain," she said, with her voice barely heard over the cosmic song. "Permission to try first contact. Procedures." The request hung in the air like a challenge to everything they understood about surviving in the most dangerous parts of the galaxy. Captain Day looked at Hana like she had suggested jumping out of the ship without a spacesuit. The idea of trying to talk to the galaxy's most feared creature seemed completely crazy. "Hana, that thing is the size of a small moon and has made 3 research stations disappear. You want to send it a friendly message," Captain Day said, shaking his head. But Hana felt something she had never felt before. The fear was still there, cold and sharp in her chest, but there was something else, a growing feeling that they were not facing just a monster but something much more important. "Sir, please look at the information," she said, bringing up displays that filled the space above their control panels. "Look at every move it has made. If the Vorthak wanted to kill us, we would have been dead before we even knew it was there. But instead, it is staying far enough away to keep us safe. It is trying to communicate, and it is showing what can only be called restraint." Dr. Yuki nodded slowly as her scientific mind began to understand what Hana was thinking. The sound patterns definitely have structure. There are mathematical progressions in the harmonies and prime number sequences built into the frequency changes. This is absolutely a language. Commander Lee was not convinced. His hand stayed on his weapon controls. Or it could be how this thing hypnotizes its food before eating. We have seen that kind of behavior in many species. But not with this level of brain complexity, Hana argued, bringing up brain scan data on her screen. "Sir, the Vorthak's neural activity is more advanced than our most sophisticated computer systems. We are not dealing with an animal. We are dealing with a being that might be more intelligent than we are." The cosmic song continued to fill their ship. Its strange melodies created vibrations that went through the hull itself. Several crew members had to sit down as the sound affected their balance, but Hana seemed immune to the disorientation. Captain Day found himself in an impossible situation. The rulebook said they should retreat immediately and report what they found to Fleet Command. His duty to his crew said he should get them away from danger. But the explorer in him, the part that had driven him to travel to unknown parts of space, was fascinated by the possibility that they were witnessing first contact with something unprecedented. "What exactly are you asking me to let you do?" he asked finally. Hana took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would either make her career or end all their lives. "I want to respond to its song. Not with weapons or threats, but with music of our own. Mathematics is supposed to be the universal language, but I think we are wrong. I think harmony is." "That is completely theoretical," Commander Lee protested. "We have no idea how it might interpret any signal we send." "You are right," Hana admitted. "But sir, think about what this could mean. If the Vorthak is intelligent, and if it has been trying to communicate with other species, but only meeting violence, then maybe the reason those research stations disappeared is not because it destroyed them. Maybe it is because the crews attacked first and it had to defend itself." Dr. Yuki was studying the incoming sound data with growing excitement. Hana might be correct. The mathematical structures in its song are incredibly sophisticated. This is definitely intentional communication, not just biological noise. Outside their windows, the Vorthak continued its graceful movement around their ship. The star patterns on its skin had begun to pulse in rhythm with its song, creating a light show that was both beautiful and completely alien. Captain Day made his decision with the weight of command, and the hope of discovery balanced on his shoulders. "Dr. Kim, you have 15 minutes to establish communication. If there is any sign of aggressive behavior, we leave immediately." "Yes, sir," Hana said. Her heart was racing as she moved to the communications control panel. Her hands shook slightly as she began setting up the ship's transmission systems. "What are you planning to send?" Dr. Yuki asked, moving to help her. "Something simple, something universal." Hana worked on the controls, setting up a basic mathematical progression translated into sound frequencies. Prime numbers first, then basic geometric relationships. If it responds, we will know it understands mathematical concepts. Commander Lee watched the tactical displays like a hunting bird watching for prey. "I am keeping weapons ready, Captain. First sign of trouble and we shoot." "Understood, Commander." Captain Day moved to stand behind Hana as she prepared humanity's first intentional communication with the galaxy's apex predator. "Proceed, Dr. Kim." Hana activated the transmission, sending a simple sequence of tones into space. It was the mathematical representation of the first 10 prime numbers, followed by the sound equivalent of geometric ratios found in nature. The response was immediate and shocking. The Vorthak song changed, incorporating their sequence and building on it with harmonies that showed not just understanding but advanced mathematical knowledge that went far beyond what they had sent. "It is responding," Hana whispered with awe in her voice. "It is not just repeating our sequence. It is completing it and showing us mathematical relationships we have not even discovered yet." Dr. Yuki leaned over the console with her eyes wide as she watched the data streaming in from their cosmic correspondent. "This is incredible. The Vorthak is demonstrating an understanding of advanced physics and mathematical concepts that are at the very edge of human knowledge." The mathematical conversation continued for almost an hour, with each exchange becoming more complex and revealing. The Vorthak demonstrated knowledge of quantum mechanics space-time theory and mathematical concepts that humanity would not understand for decades. But more importantly, it showed patience. The patience of a teacher working with promising but limited students. "It is teaching us," Hana said, completely absorbed in the communication. "Look at these equations. It is showing us solutions to problems we have been working on for decades." Captain Day watched the exchange with growing amazement but also growing concern. How old would something have to be to know this much? Based on the mathematical concepts it is casually referencing, Hana said, running calculations on her other computer. "I estimate the Vorthak has been alive and learning for at least 10,000 years. Maybe much longer." The meaning of that statement made everyone on the bridge feel small and amazed. They were communicating with a being that had existed since before human civilization, something that had watched the rise and fall of countless species across the galaxy. Commander Lee suddenly straightened at his station. "Captain, I am detecting movement from the outer system. 3 vessels approaching fast. The configuration matches hegemony enforcement ships." The Galactic Hegemony was the loose organization of species that kept order in this part of space. Their enforcement division was known for shooting first and asking questions later, when dealing with unknown threats. "The Vorthak definitely qualified as an unknown threat. Time until they reach us?" Captain Day asked. 18 minutes, sir." Hana looked up from her console in alarm. "Captain, if those ships arrive and see the Vorthak, they will attack immediately. The Hegemony considers it a Class 5 galactic threat with kill-on-sight orders. Can we warn them to stay away? Not without revealing our position and the fact that we have been in contact with it," Commander Lee replied. "And there is no guarantee they would listen anyway." Dr. Yuki turned to Hana. "Can you ask the Vorthak to leave? Explain the danger." Hana worked quickly, sending a complex message that combined mathematical warnings with references to the approaching ships. The response came immediately, but it was not what they expected. The Vorthak's song changed, becoming deeper and more sad. The star patterns on its skin shifted to darker colors and its massive form seemed to contract slightly. "It is sad," Hana said with sudden understanding in her voice. "It knows about the Hegemony ships. It has been through this before." "What do you mean?" Captain Day asked. Hana worked frantically to translate the creature's response. "It is telling us about the research stations. They were not destroyed, Captain. They were evacuated. The Vorthak tried to communicate with them just like it did with us, but the crews panicked. When the Hegemony ships arrived, the Vorthak had to choose between letting the stations be destroyed in the fighting or taking them somewhere safe. Taking them where? The answer came in the form of new coordinates sent directly to their navigation system, along with sound patterns that conveyed complex emotions, loneliness, hope, and an ancient sadness that spoke of thousands of years of isolation. "It has a sanctuary," Dr. Yuki said with amazement, "a place where it has been protecting species that were willing to communicate rather than fight." Commander Lee's expression had changed from suspicion to something approaching respect. "It has been saving people. All this time the galaxy's supposed ultimate predator has been rescuing crews from their own fear and prejudice." The Hegemony ships were now 15 minutes away and closing fast. Captain Day faced the most important decision of his career. They could run, leaving the Vorthak to face 3 heavily armed vessels alone. They could stay and try to help, risking their own destruction, or they could trust in the ancient intelligence that had just revealed itself to them. "Hana," he said quietly, "ask our friend if it needs help." The young scientist looked at her captain with surprise and admiration. She sent the question and the response came back immediately. It was not in mathematics this time, but in something that... The 3 Hegemony enforcement ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their weapons were already powered up and their targeting systems were locked onto the massive life form that represented the galaxy's most feared creature. Captain Day watched them approach on his tactical display, knowing that in moments everything would change forever. "This is Enforcer Squadron Leader Vextar of the Hegemony Enforcement Division," came a harsh alien voice over the communication channels. "Unknown human vessel withdraw immediately from the threat zone. We are authorized to use lethal force against the Class 5 entity." Captain Day looked at Hana, who was still maintaining communication with the Vorthak. "What is it saying?" "It is saying goodbye," Hana replied with her voice breaking slightly. "It thinks we should leave so we will not be hurt in the fighting," Captain Commander Lee reported. "The Hegemony ships are charging their main weapons. Those are planet crackers, sir. If they fire at full power in this asteroid field, the debris will destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers, including us. Dr. Yuki moved to the communication console. Captain, we have to try to stop this. The hegemony does not know what they are about to destroy. But even as she spoke, the lead enforcement vessel opened fire. Massive energy beams shot through space toward the Vorthak, but something incredible happened. The ancient creature did not dodge or run away. It absorbed the attack. The energy that should have destroyed it was somehow converted and dispersed harmlessly through its massive form. Impossible, Commander Lee said with amazement. Those weapons should have vaporized anything organic. The Vorthak's response was swift, but not what anyone expected. Instead of fighting back, it began to sing. Not the mathematical communication it had shared with the humans, but something deeper and more powerful. The song resonated through space itself, and suddenly every ship in the area began receiving the same transmission. It is broadcasting on all frequencies, Hana said, working frantically at her console. And not just to us, but to everyone. The transmission was not just sound. It was memory, experience, and history all combined into a form of communication that went beyond species barriers. Suddenly everyone present, including humans, hegemony aliens, and the crews of all the ships experienced the Vorthak's memories directly. They saw 10,000 years of history from the perspective of a being that had watched civilizations rise and fall. They experienced its first encounters with spacefaring species, its attempts at communication, and the tragic pattern that always followed. Fear, violence, and the necessity of choosing between protecting itself and protecting others. They saw the research stations not destroyed, but carefully moved to a hidden sanctuary where the crews lived safely. They were studying and learning alongside other species that had chosen understanding over fear. They saw the Vorthak not as a predator, but as a guardian that had spent thousands of years protecting the galaxy's smaller species from their own destructive impulses. The bombardment from the hegemony ships stopped as their crews struggled to process what they were experiencing. On the bridge of the New Horizon, several officers were openly crying as they felt the ancient creature's loneliness and its desperate desire for genuine contact. "This is Squadron Leader Vextar," came the alien voice. Again, but now it was uncertain and confused. "All vessels stand down. We are receiving unprecedented data transmissions from the entity." Hana found her voice first. "Captain, we have to help them understand. The hegemony crews are experiencing the same thing we are, but they do not have the context." Captain Day nodded, moving to the communication console. "This is Captain Day Park of the human research vessel New Horizon. Squadron Leader Vextar, what you are experiencing is the Vorthak's memories. This creature is not a predator. It has been protecting our people for thousands of years." "That is difficult to accept," Vextar replied. "Our records clearly indicate that it is a threat." "Your records are wrong," Hana interrupted, with her youth making her bold. "Sir, the Vorthak has been saving crews, not destroying them. Every attack you have on record was actually a rescue mission." The massive creature had stopped moving, hanging motionless in space as it continued its unprecedented broadcast. The star patterns on its skin pulsed with gentle light, and its song had become a lament for all the misunderstandings that had kept it isolated for so long. Dr. Yuki stepped forward. "Squadron Leader, this is Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Chief Xenobiologist. I can provide you with complete bioscan data that proves the Vorthak's non-aggressive nature. But more importantly, it can show you the location of every crew it has rescued over the past century." There was a long silence as the hegemony commanders processed this information. The shared memories were still flowing through, their minds showing them truth that contradicted everything they had been taught about the galaxy's apex predator. Finally, Vextar's voice returned, and it was no longer harsh with authority, but soft with wonder. "The entity wishes to take us somewhere, to show us something." Hana looked at Captain Day. "Sir, it wants to take us to the sanctuary. It wants to prove that the people it saved are alive and well. And if it is a trap," Commander Lee asked, though his tone suggested he no longer believed it was, "then we will have been wrong about the most important discovery in galactic history," Captain Day replied. "But I do not think we are wrong. Communications signal the hegemony vessels. We are accepting the Vorthak's invitation." The decision was not easy. Every regulation, every piece of training, every instinct developed over years of deep space exploration told them to retreat and report their findings to higher authorities. But sometimes the greatest discoveries required the greatest leaps of faith. Squadron Leader Vexitar. Captain Day said over the open channel, "We recommend following the Vorthak to its destination. I believe we are about to witness something that will change our understanding of the galaxy forever." "Agreed, Captain Park," came the reply. "All vessels will follow the entity to the coordinates it has provided. Weapon systems will remain powered, down unless direct aggression is observed." As the small fleet of ships prepared to follow the ancient guardian toward coordinates unknown, Hana realized that they were not just witnessing first contact. They were witnessing the end of the galaxy's greatest misunderstanding and perhaps the beginning of a new era. The Vorthak began to move again, but this time its movements were different. There was joy in its motion, a sense of anticipation that had been absent for millennia. For the first time in its incredibly long existence, it was bringing visitors to its sanctuary, not as refugees fleeing destruction, but as guests coming in peace. Navigation plotting hyperspace jumped to the provided coordinates, reported the helm officer. All ships ready for jump, came confirmations from the hegemony vessels. The Vorthak positioned itself at the head of their small convoy and began to sing again. But this time its song was not one of loneliness or lament. It was a song of welcome, of hope, and of the possibility that the galaxy might finally be ready to accept its oldest guardian. "Jump." In 3, 2, 1 called out the navigation officer. Space folded around them as they entered hyperspace, following a creature that had been protecting the galaxy since before any of their civilizations existed. They were about to discover that the apex predator was something far more extraordinary than they had ever imagined. The greatest revelation in galactic history was waiting for them at the end of their journey. And Hana Kim, the rookie xenobiologist who had chosen curiosity over fear, was about to see her faith in communication and understanding vindicated in the most spectacular way possible. The hunt was over. The real discovery was about to begin. The journey through hyperspace took 6 hours, with the Vorthak somehow guiding their ships through spatial coordinates that existed nowhere in any galactic database. The ancient creature moved through hyperspace like it was swimming through water, showing a mastery of physics that left even their most advanced scientists speechless when they emerged. From the jump, every crew member in the small fleet made sounds of amazement. Before them lay a hidden solar system unlike anything they had ever imagined. 3 planets orbited a gentle star, but these were not just worlds. They were gardens. Each planet glowed with the soft light of advanced biotechnology, and their surfaces were covered in structures that seemed to grow rather than be built. "My God," whispered Dr. Yuki, staring at the sensor readings. "The entire system is artificial." The Vorthak did not just find this place, it created it. Hana's console was alive with biological signatures from all 3 worlds. "Captain, I am reading life signs from dozens of different species. The diversity is incredible. Some of these biopatterns match the crews from the missing research stations." "This is Squadron Leader Vexitar," came the transmission from the lead hegemony vessel. "I am detecting structures and life signs that correspond to 17 different expeditions that were listed as destroyed by the Vorthak over the past 50 years. As they approached the first planet, they could see the truth of the Vorthak's nature spread out before them. The surface was covered with cities that blended organic and technological elements in perfect harmony. Gardens stretched between research facilities where beings from across the galaxy worked together, studying and learning in complete safety. "It is not just a sanctuary," Hana said with her eyes wide with wonder. "It is a university. The Vorthak has been gathering the galaxy's best and brightest, protecting them and giving them the resources to pursue pure knowledge." The massive creature that had guided them here began to sing again, and this time its song was one of pure joy. It had finally found others who could understand what it had been trying to accomplish for thousands of years. Captain Day received a priority transmission from the planet's surface. When the signal cleared, he found himself looking at a human face he recognized from the missing persons reports. It was Dr. Sarah Chen from the Lost Research Station Horizon Base. "Captain Park," she said, smiling broadly. "Welcome to paradise. I cannot tell you how good it is to see a human ship arrive here under friendly circumstances. Dr. Chen, you were reported killed 3 years ago when your station was attacked by the Vorthak." Chen laughed, and the sound carried years of accumulated wonder. "Killed, Captain, I have never been more alive. The Vorthak did not attack our station. It saved us from a solar flare that would have destroyed our research and killed our entire crew. We have been living here ever since, working on projects that will advance every species in the galaxy by centuries. Over the next several hours, they received similar testimonies from crew members of every lost expedition. The pattern was always the same. The Vorthak had detected some threat to their missions. Natural disasters, hostile aliens, equipment failures. It had intervened to save them, bringing them to the sanctuary, where they could continue their work in safety. Dr. Yuki was studying the data streaming from the planet with growing excitement. The technological advances they have achieved here are incredible. Medical breakthroughs that could eliminate disease, engineering solutions that could terraform dead worlds, mathematical discoveries that rewrite our understanding of physics. And they have been sharing this knowledge, added Dr. Chen over the communication link. The Vorthak has been teaching us, connecting different species, research efforts, and helping us achieve things that would have taken us millennia to discover on our own. Hana found herself in direct communication with the Vorthak, using her console as a translator between human language and the creature's complex mathematical song. What she learned changed her understanding of the galaxy itself. "Captain," she said, turning from her console with tears of joy streaming down her face, "the Vorthak is not just ancient. It is one of the galaxy's original inhabitants. It has been watching over younger species for eons, guiding our development and protecting us from threats we are not ready to face." "What do you mean?" Captain Day asked. "Sir, every major advance in galactic civilization came from mysterious discoveries by various species. Faster than light travel, universal translation protocols, the mathematics that made the galactic hegemony possible. But they were not discoveries. They were gifts. The Vorthak has been secretly teaching us, helping us grow, and preparing us for something." Dr. Yuki looked up from her analysis with concern in her voice. "Preparing us for what?" The answer came directly from the Vorthak, transmitted through Hana's console in words that carried the weight of cosmic truth. "The others are coming. The galaxy must be ready." Commander Lee straightened at his station. "Others? What others?" "Something from outside our galaxy," Hana translated, with her voice dropping to a whisper. "Something that views all organic life as competition. The Vorthak has been preparing us, making us stronger, hoping that when the time comes we will be ready to stand together." The magnitude of the revelation settled over the bridge crew like a heavy blanket. They were not just dealing with First Contact or even the galaxy's apex predator. They were dealing with their protector, their teacher, and possibly their only hope against a threat they could not yet comprehend. Squadron Leader Vextar's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain Park, I am transmitting new orders to Hegemony Command. The Vorthak is to be reclassified from Class 5 threat to Class 1 protected entity. Any vessel that attacks it will face court-martial." The implications of that change rippled through both crews. In a matter of hours, they had gone from hunting the galaxy's most feared predator to discovering their most important ally. "There is more," Dr. Chen said from the planet's surface. "The Vorthak wants to invite representatives from all major galactic civilizations to visit the sanctuary. It believes the time for secrecy is ending. The preparations must accelerate." Captain Day looked around his bridge at the crew that had made this impossible discovery. "Dr. Kim, you may have just saved the galaxy." Hana looked out at the sanctuary worlds where thousands of beings from dozens of species worked together under the protection of their ancient guardian. The rookie who had stepped forward in the face of the galaxy's most feared predator had discovered that sometimes the scariest things were actually the most wonderful. But even as they celebrated this momentous discovery, the shadow of the approaching threat loomed over them. The Vorthak had been preparing the galaxy for thousands of years, but time was running out. The others were coming, and everything they had built, everything they had learned, would soon be put to the ultimate test. The real challenge was yet to come. But for the first time in galactic history, they would face it together, with their ancient guardian no longer hiding in the shadows but standing proudly alongside the civilizations it had spent millennia protecting and nurturing. The galaxy was about to change forever, and it all started with one young woman who chose to say hello instead of goodbye. 3 days had passed since their arrival at the sanctuary system, and Captain Day was still trying to process everything they had learned. The New Horizon was now in orbit, around the second planet where human scientists were working alongside alien researchers on projects that seemed like magic. Dr. Chen had given them a complete tour of the facilities, and what they saw defied belief. The Vorthak had not just created a safe haven for rescued researchers. It had built the most advanced research complex in the galaxy, where different species shared knowledge and worked together in ways that their home governments had never imagined possible. The medical advances alone could revolutionize treatment across the galaxy. Dr. Yuki reported to Captain Day as they stood in the observation deck, looking down at the planet. They have developed treatments for diseases we consider incurable, techniques for regenerating lost limbs, even methods for extending natural lifespan by centuries. Hana was studying reports from the various research teams with growing amazement. The agricultural innovations could end hunger on 1,000 worlds. They have created crop variants that can grow in almost any environment and produce yields 10 times greater than standard farming. But it was the weapons research that caught Commander Lee's attention. Captain, they have defensive technologies that make our most advanced systems look like Stone Age tools. Energy shields that can deflect planet-killing weapons. Point defense systems that can track and destroy thousands of incoming missiles simultaneously. All of this shared freely among the researchers, Captain Day observed. No one species hoarding knowledge or trying to gain advantage over the others. That is the Vorthak's influence, Dr. Chen explained as she joined them on the observation deck. It taught us early that cooperation produces better results than competition. When you are working on problems that affect the survival of all organic life, petty rivalries become meaningless. The mention of survival brought them back to the looming threat that had driven all this preparation. Hana had been in almost constant communication with the Vorthak, learning more about the others and the coming danger. What exactly are we preparing for? Captain Day asked. Hana consulted her notes from the latest communication session. The others are a machine intelligence from another galaxy. They have been systematically consuming organic life wherever they find it, not for resources or territory, but because they view biological evolution as inefficient and chaotic. A machine intelligence, Commander Lee said thoughtfully. That explains the focus on defensive technologies and cooperation. Individual combat skills will not matter against an enemy that thinks and acts as a collective. Dr. Yuki was studying star charts that showed the predicted route of the approaching threat. According to the Vorthak's calculations, they will reach the outer rim of our galaxy within 50 years. We have that long to prepare. 50 years seems like a lot of time, Captain Day said. Not when you consider the scale of preparation needed, Dr. Chen replied. The Vorthak estimates we will need to unite every major civilization in the galaxy, share all our defensive technologies, and coordinate the construction of massive defensive networks around critical systems. The magnitude of the task was overwhelming. The galaxy had never achieved anything close to that level of cooperation. Most species could barely work together on trade agreements, let alone coordinate a galactic defense network. The hegemony will never agree to full cooperation, Commander Lee pointed out. Too many species still see each other as competitors or threats. That is why the Vorthak is revealing itself now, Hana said. It hopes that the knowledge of what it has been doing will convince the major powers that cooperation is not just possible but necessary, as, if summoned by their conversation, squadron leader Vexitar contacted them from his ship in orbit around the first planet. Captain Park, I have received responses from Hegemony Command regarding our reports. The initial reaction is skepticism, but they are sending a full diplomatic mission to investigate our claims. What about the other major powers? Dr. Yuki asked. The Terran Federation is dispatching their best scientific teams. The Crystalline Collective is sending philosophers to study the ethical implications. Even the normally isolationist hive worlds have expressed interest in sending observers. It was unprecedented. In a matter of days, word of the discovery had spread throughout the galaxy, and every major civilization was taking notice. The creature they had all feared as the ultimate predator was being revealed as their greatest protector. But Hana knew from her communications with the Vorthak that the revelation was not without risk. For thousands of years it had operated in secret specifically to avoid the kind of attention it was now receiving. The Vorthak is scared, she told the others during a briefing session. Not of the delegations or the attention, but of what will happen if the major powers cannot overcome their differences. If they fail to unite, then everything it has worked for will be meaningless. What does it want us to do? Captain Day asked. It wants us to be advocates, Hana replied, to help convince the incoming delegations that cooperation is possible, to show them that humans and other species can work together effectively. Dr. Chen nodded in agreement. The research teams here have proven that different species can collaborate on complex projects. We have humans working with crystalline philosophers, hive drone specialists, and even some of the more exotic silicon-based life forms. But will the politicians and military leaders listen? Commander Lee wondered aloud. They will have to, Dr. Yuki said with determination, when they see what has been accomplished. Here, when they understand the magnitude of the threat we are facing, they will have no choice but to listen. The first diplomatic ships were already approaching the system, and Captain Day knew that the next few weeks would determine the future of the galaxy. The discovery of the Vorthak's true nature was just the beginning. Now came the much harder task of convincing an entire galaxy to work together. The Vorthak has been preparing us for this moment for thousands of years, Hana said, looking out at the research facilities where so many species were already proving that cooperation was possible. It has given us the tools and the knowledge we need. Now it is up to us to use them. As the first diplomatic shuttle approached the sanctuary world, Captain Day realized that they were about to witness either the beginning of the greatest alliance in galactic history or the revelation of why the others had been successful in consuming so many other galaxies. The fate of every living being in the galaxy would soon rest on their ability to overcome fear, prejudice, and ancient rivalries. But they would not face that challenge alone. For the first time in its long existence, the Vorthak would stand openly beside them as their guardian and guide. The real test was about to begin, and everything they had learned, everything they had discovered would be put to the ultimate trial. But Hana felt hope growing in her heart because she had seen what was possible when different species chose understanding over fear. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had learned. Sometimes the things that scare us the most are actually trying to save us. 2 weeks after the first diplomatic ships arrived at the sanctuary system, the transformation was remarkable. What had begun as a secret refuge for rescued researchers had become the most important gathering place in galactic history. Representatives from every major civilization were now working together in ways that had never been attempted before. Captain Day stood in the main conference facility, built into the living structure of a massive tree that the Vorthak had grown specifically for these meetings. Around the circular chamber sat delegates from dozens of species, all focused on the holographic display showing defensive preparations across the galaxy. The Terran Federation has agreed to share our shield technology with all allied worlds, announced Ambassador Sarah Kim, Hana's older sister, who had arrived with the human diplomatic mission. In return, we request access to the Crystalline Collective's quantum communication networks. The response came from a being that looked like a walking crystal formation. The collective agrees to this exchange. Our philosophers have determined that knowledge sharing in the face of extinction is not just permissible but morally required. Similar agreements were being reached throughout the chamber. The hive worlds were sharing their advanced manufacturing capabilities. The Silicon Republic was providing computational resources. Even species that had been enemies for centuries were finding common ground in the face of the approaching threat. Dr. Yuki had been appointed as the head of the Scientific Coordination Committee, and she was presenting the latest research findings. Based on our analysis of the others' advance patterns, we have refined our timeline. They will reach the outer rim systems in 47 years. We estimate another 3 years for them to penetrate to the core worlds. 50 years to prepare the entire galaxy, mused General Thane of the Terran military. It seems impossible. The Vorthak has been preparing for this moment for millennia, Hana said from her position as the official liaison between the creature and the diplomatic mission. It has already identified the key strategic points that must be defended and has preliminary designs for the defensive networks we will need. Commander Lee, who had been promoted to head of military coordination, nodded in agreement. The weapon systems developed here are beyond anything we have ever imagined, but they require resources from multiple star systems and cooperation between species that have never worked together before. The challenge was enormous, but progress was being made. The threat of extinction had accomplished what thousands of years of diplomacy had failed to achieve. Ancient enemies were becoming allies. Secretive species were sharing their most guarded technologies. Isolationist civilizations were opening their borders to joint research projects. The most remarkable development, Dr. Chen reported from her position as head of the research coordination, is how quickly the different species are learning to work together. When you are facing the end of all organic life in the galaxy, petty differences become meaningless. Squadron leader Vextar had been assigned as the military liaison for the hegemony forces, and his reports showed how much had changed in just 2 weeks. Hegemony Command has issued new directives. All conflicts between member species are to be suspended indefinitely. All military resources are to be redirected toward galactic defense preparations. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed the Vorthak itself. The creature that had been feared as the ultimate predator was now revered as their greatest protector and teacher. Children across 100 worlds were learning songs about the ancient guardian that had watched over them for so long. Hana had become the primary communicator with the Vorthak, and through her, the creature shared its vast knowledge with the growing alliance. But she could sense something else in its communications. Hope mixed with ancient sadness and the weight of knowledge that came from watching civilizations rise and fall. The Vorthak is telling us about other galaxies, she reported during one of the daily briefings. It has memories of civilizations that failed to unite in time. Entire galaxies where organic life was extinguished because cooperation came too late. But it also has memories of successful defenses, she continued with growing excitement. Galaxies where different species worked together and not only survived but thrived, where the threat of the others created bonds that lasted for millions of years. The revelation gave everyone hope. They were not facing an unwinnable battle. Other galaxies had succeeded, and with the Vorthak's guidance, they could succeed as well. Captain Day had been appointed as the overall coordinator for the human contribution to the defense efforts, and he found himself working 18-hour days, managing logistics and resource allocation, but he had never felt more purposeful in his life. The supply chains are the biggest challenge, he reported to the coordination committee. Moving resources between star systems requires cooperation between species that have never trusted each other with trade agreements, let alone military coordination. The Vorthak has proposed a solution, Hana said, consulting her latest communications. It wants to create a network of sanctuary systems like this one. Safe havens where different species can work together and coordinate their efforts without worrying about political complications. The proposal was ambitious but practical. By creating multiple research and coordination centers throughout the galaxy, they could overcome the limitations of distance and political boundaries that had always hampered large-scale cooperation. Dr. Yuki was studying the technical requirements. The biotechnology needed to create these systems is beyond our current capabilities. But the Vorthak has offered to help with the construction. It can literally grow the facilities we need. Growing planets, General Thane said with amazement. 2 months ago, I would have said that was impossible. Now it seems like our best hope for survival. The transformation in thinking was remarkable. Species that had spent centuries focused on competition and conflict were now embracing cooperation and long-term planning. The threat of extinction had forced them to evolve beyond their traditional limitations. As the weeks passed, more delegations arrived, and the alliance grew stronger. The nomad fleets brought their expertise in mobile defense platforms. The ancient archives shared historical records of previous galactic threats. Even the mysterious void dwellers emerged from their hidden dimensions to offer assistance. We are witnessing the birth of a true galactic civilization, Ambassador Kim observed during one of the evening briefings. Not just an alliance of convenience, but a genuine partnership between all sentient species. Hana looked out through the transparent walls of the conference facility at the stars beyond. Somewhere in that vast darkness, the others were approaching with the intention of ending all organic life in the galaxy. But for the first time in its long existence, the galaxy was truly united in response. The Vorthak says something interesting, she told the assembled delegates. It says that in all its thousands of years of watching over us, this is the first time it feels genuinely hopeful about our chances. The ancient guardian that had protected them in secret for so long was no longer alone. It had an entire galaxy of allies working beside it, preparing for the greatest challenge in their history. The rookie xenobiologist who had chosen communication over fear had started something that would reshape the galaxy forever. But more importantly, she had proven that Sometimes the scariest things in the universe were actually trying to save us. The Vorthak's song now filled the sanctuary system every day, and it was no longer a lament of loneliness. It was a song of hope and unity, and the promise that when the others arrived, they would face not a divided galaxy of competing species, but a united alliance of organic life with the galaxy's greatest guardian, leading them into battle. The real war had not yet begun, but the foundation for victory had been laid, and it all started with one young woman who stepped forward when everyone else stepped back and chose to say hello to the thing that everyone else feared. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in cosmic history, that was a very good thing. 1 year had passed since the discovery at the sanctuary system, and the galaxy was transforming at a pace that amazed even the most optimistic observers. Captain Day stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, but this was not the same small research vessel that had stumbled upon the Vorthak. It had been rebuilt and expanded using a combination of human engineering and Vorthak biotechnology into something that was half ship and half living organism. Captain, we are receiving confirmation from the Outer Rim defense stations, reported Communications Officer Yoon, whose console now interfaced directly with Vorthak neural networks, allowing near instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Construction is proceeding ahead of schedule on all 17 primary defensive platforms. The scope of the construction projects would have been impossible without the Vorthak's assistance. The ancient creature had not only shared its knowledge, but had actively participated in creating the defensive networks. Massive living structures that could think and adapt were being grown throughout the galaxy, each one capable of coordinating the defense of entire star systems. Hana had been promoted to Chief Xenobiological Liaison, and now spent most of her time traveling between worlds helping different species integrate Vorthak biotechnology with their own systems. The shy rookie who had first suggested communicating with the apex predator was now one of the most important people in the galaxy. The integration on New Terra is complete, she reported, from her station, which was no longer just a console but a living interface that responded to her thoughts and emotions. The planetary defense grid is now fully operational, and the colonists report that the ecosystem improvements have increased crop yields by 400%. Dr. Yuki had been appointed as the head of the Galactic Research Coordination Council and was overseeing scientific projects on thousands of worlds. The medical advances continue to astound us, she said, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Diseases that plague civilizations for millennia are being eliminated. Life expectancy for most species has increased by centuries. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in how different species interacted with each other. The old patterns of suspicion and competition had been replaced by cooperation and mutual support. Children growing up in this new galaxy learned multiple alien languages as naturally as their own, and many chose to spend time living and working on worlds populated by entirely different species. Commander Lee now held the rank of Admiral and commanded the combined military forces of the Galactic Alliance. Training exercises between mixed species units are exceeding all expectations, he reported. Humans working alongside crystalline warriors and hive drones are achieving tactical coordination that was previously thought impossible. The Vorthak itself had changed as well. No longer hiding in shadows, it now traveled openly between systems, helping with construction projects and serving as a living symbol of the unity that had been achieved. Its song could be heard on communication networks throughout the galaxy, and children of dozens of species learned to recognize its melodies. The Vorthak reports that the defensive preparations are now 60% complete, Hana announced after consulting with the ancient guardian. At the current rate of progress, we will be ready with 5 years to spare before the others arrive. But the preparations were about more than just defensive weapons and shield systems. The galaxy was becoming something new and unprecedented. A true civilization that spanned countless worlds and included every form of sentient life that had ever evolved. Squadron leader Vextar now served as the hegemony representative on the Galactic Defense Council, and his reports showed how completely the old order had changed. Member worlds are voluntarily sharing resources and technology at levels that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. The concept of species rivalry has become almost extinct. Dr. Chen had established the Sanctuary Institute, with campuses on dozens of worlds where researchers from every species worked together on projects that benefited all organic life. We are seeing scientific advances that are accelerating at an exponential rate, she reported. When different species combine their unique perspectives and abilities, the results are truly extraordinary. Ambassador Kim had been elected as the first president of the Galactic Council, a position that rotated between species but carried real authority to coordinate resources and make decisions that affected the entire galaxy. The political integration is proceeding as smoothly as the technological integration, she announced. We are proving that democracy can work on a galactic scale. The transformation was not without challenges. Some worlds and species had initially resisted the changes, preferring isolation to integration, but as the benefits of cooperation became undeniable, even the most reluctant civilizations began to participate in the growing alliance. The economic benefits alone have convinced most holdout worlds to join, reported the Galactic Trade Coordinator, a position that had been created to manage resource flows between thousands of star systems. When planets can trade freely and benefit from shared technologies, their prosperity increases dramatically. Captain Day often reflected on how much had changed since that first encounter in the asteroid field. The crew of the New Horizon had become celebrities throughout the galaxy, but more importantly, they had become symbols of what was possible when fear was replaced by curiosity and understanding. Status report on the deep space monitoring stations, he requested. All stations operational and reporting normal space, came the reply. No signs of the others yet, but our detection capabilities have improved beyond anything we thought possible. When they do arrive, we will have months of advance warning. The monitoring network was another marvel of cooperative engineering. Stations positioned at the very edge of the galaxy used Vorthak biological sensors combined with the most advanced technology from dozens of species to watch for the approaching threat. They could detect disturbances in space-time itself and track objects moving at faster than light speeds across incredible distances. Hana had just returned from a tour of the Outer Rim stations, and her reports were encouraging. The crews manning the monitoring stations represent every major species in the galaxy, she said. They have formed bonds that go beyond mere professional cooperation. Many consider themselves family now. This was perhaps the most important change of all. The artificial barriers that had separated species for millions of years were dissolving. Interspecies marriages were becoming common. Children were growing up truly bilingual or even multilingual in alien languages. Cultural exchange was happening at every level of society. The Vorthak wants to share something with us, Hana announced after receiving a communication from the Ancient Guardian. It says that in all its long existence, it has never seen organic life achieve this level of unity and cooperation. We have exceeded even its most optimistic projections. The praise from their ancient protector meant more than any official recognition. The Vorthak had watched civilizations rise and fall for thousands of years, and its assessment carried the weight of vast experience and wisdom. Dr. Yuki was reviewing long-term projections for the galactic development. If we continue at this rate of integration and advancement, the galaxy we will have in 50 years will be unrecognizable from what it was just 2 years ago. We are not just preparing to survive the others, we are evolving into something greater. The question is what happens after we defeat the others, Admiral Lee observed. We will have the most powerful military alliance in galactic history and technology that borders on the miraculous. How do we ensure that this unity continues when the external threat is gone? It was a valid concern. History showed that alliances often fell apart once the threat that created them was eliminated. But the changes that had occurred seemed deeper and more permanent than mere military cooperation. The Vorthak has thoughts on that as well, Hana said after consulting the Alien Guardian. It believes that once species learn to truly cooperate, they rarely go back to isolation and conflict. The benefits are too obvious and the bonds form too strong. Ambassador Kim had been working on this exact issue. We are drafting the Charter for Galactic Civilization, she announced, a document that will formalize our cooperation and create permanent institutions for maintaining unity. It will be signed by representatives of every species in the galaxy. The Charter was more than just a treaty. It was a blueprint for the future of organic life in the galaxy. It established principles of mutual cooperation, resource sharing, and peaceful conflict resolution that would guide civilization for generations to come. Captain Day looked around the bridge at his crew, who had become legends. For their role in starting this transformation, Officer Yoon had developed new communication protocols that were being used throughout the galaxy. Commander Lee had created training programs that were producing the finest military units in galactic history. Dr. Yuki had established research networks that were accelerating scientific progress beyond all previous measures. But it was Hana who had made it all possible. The young scientist who had chosen to communicate rather than flee had set in motion changes that would reshape the galaxy forever. Her decision to step forward in the face of the unknown had proven that courage and curiosity,